All right, Entree Architect community, it's 4 p.m. Eastern, which means it's time for the Entree Architect Context and Clarity Live session for Thursday, August 12th, 2021. Thank you for joining us. Great to have you here. As you get here, say hi. Let us know that you're here and let us know where you're joining the conversation from. It is always fun to see how far these conversations spread. If you're not familiar, it is not at all unusual for us to have someone from Anaheim, California, all the way around to Australia. We circle the globe with these conversations. So we want to know where you are. And if you're listening to us in the future via podcast, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We've got a great show lined up for you today, a great guest. And we will get into that in just a minute. But if we've never met before, my name is Jeff. I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm joined by Katharine. Katharine, where are you?
I'm in Arlington, Massachusetts.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad she said that because a minute ago she told me she was in a cauldron. So
I'm in both a cauldron in Arlington, Massachusetts.
It's just like witchcraft jokes.
No, we're not far from Salem. So
okay, all right. Well, maybe we'll get into that a little bit. A little bit later. But we come here every afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern for one reason, so that we can find clarity around the things that matter most to you, the architect. And it doesn't matter if you're the owner of a firm or you're the employee of a firm. Maybe you've circled a date on the calendar and you've said 2021 is my year and you're on your way to starting your own thing. Or maybe you've had your own firm for a year or 10 years or 37 years. You're starting to rethink or reimagine what that firm could or maybe should be. All of the topics that we cover, one topic every day, they all fall under the broad umbrella of the business of architecture, and they're all the need-to-know topics for the success of architects just like you. So thanks for joining us today. Great to see folks joining us from Facebook and from Twitch. I thought we had a LinkedIn, but I see Facebook and Twitch right now. I see a Facebook user, which reminds me that if you are on Facebook, you are in a private group. And because of Facebook's privacy policies, your information cannot be released from that group unless you give Facebook permission. So if you want to show up like John Jones does with his picture and his name there, he's joining us from Westport, soon to be in the sticks of Vermont, and John Kinney, he's outside of Boston. If you want to show up like that instead of Facebook user, go to the URL that's at the bottom left of your screen right now. It says chat.restream.io/FB. as in Facebook, and give Facebook permission to share your information. Then you'll show up like yourself. How's that? So thanks for joining us. Say hi, and it'll be fun to see where everybody joins this conversation from. All right, what did I leave out, Katharine? I'm sure I forgot something.
I think that covers it, except our guest, as usual.
Yep. Well, we put our guest in the green room, and they're back there with the air conditioning blasting, a bowl of ice cream, and a stout beer. So once they're finished with that, then we'll bring them out here and introduce them. Looks like they may be ready for us at this point. So let me just get into it here. Well, I see Michael Dern. He's on LinkedIn. Hi, Michael from Los Gatos. I'm glad you're joining us as well. Christian in Ithaca and Chris in Massachusetts. Mark LePage from Fisher's Landing, way upstate New York on the St. Lawrence River. Great to have you. And the rest of you, as you join us, say hi and let us know that you're here. In the meantime, our guest today is a design evangelist. She's been an editor, a correspondent, a national board member, and as a speaker. She's a PR pro. That's public relations, by the way. She's the founder and principal of Taylor & Company, and her mission is to make the world safe for design. Julie Taylor, welcome to Context and Clarity Live.
So happy to be here, but there are no green M&Ms in the green room. So.
No, don't tell anybody that. We like to pretend to get the guests on.
I'm pretty sure that Tom got in there first and ate those. I would ask him.
We're very happy to be here and to meet all the good folks out there in streaming land.
Yeah, it's a different world here in streaming land, and it's great. It is great to have everybody. John Kinney says a barley shake. I see. Yeah, absolutely. If we can make a stout float, I think we'd all be happier at this point.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, it looks like that must be Sean from Chucktown. Welcome, Sean. Welcome back. Um, as I said, as I mentioned in the introduction, Julie, you are obviously a PR, public relations pro. You founded Taylor and Company a couple of years ago.
Oh, just a few. 1994.
All right. All right. Yeah. So you've been at this for a while. We've been talking about PR all week in our daily context and clarity conversations without the guidance of a PR pro in our conversation. So why don't we just start with what is public relations or what is PR?
Yeah. Good question. I kind of look at in your intro earlier in the week, you talked about business development and as a function of it. So I look at all of marketing as the big rubric. And under that, you have the business development, your RFPs, you're getting the job in the door. The public relations, which is anything that goes outside of your office. So publications, awards, speaking, events, and then communications, which are your website and a lot of social media kind of goes in between the two. So public relations is what is your image, what are you saying outside of your office that goes out to the public at large and to your clients, to your colleagues, etc.
Yeah, it seems to me it's got an interesting little niche between. I mean, I know we couch it under marketing, but it almost seems like it's between the pushing out of marketing and the relationships of business development. So, so pretty interesting. Is there?
When we create our plans for our clients, it has to do with what are their business development goals?
Yeah.
What is the brand that they are looking to put out there? And we can help them define that as well.
That's a really great point. I mean, when we've tackled the different topics this week, so I guess we started the week with what are you doing to promote your firm, and then we went to getting published. What does that even mean in 2021? And then yesterday we talked about awards, and a thing that we hit on time and time again, of course, was strategy. What's the goal? What are you trying to achieve here? Because that's going to dictate a lot of things.
Absolutely. And I find that people get into it for a few different reasons. I mean, there's the business development, so getting in front of potential clients who don't know you. It also helps to impress those that do. Sometimes they're like teetering and they're like, oh, well, my architect's in the New York Times. Recruitment, it's very good for recruitment. It's very good for, a lot of other architects are on awards juries. They're on, local approval boards. And we just got a client who he applied for AIA fellowship, and they returned his application, and they said, you don't have enough press, you don't have enough publications and national awards. So that's our focus. And then some people just feel like it's about time I just get some recognition.
They want the warm and fuzzies, huh?
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Is there a big difference between PR for an architecture firm, let's say, and I don't know, Ford Motor Company?
I'm sure there is in some ways. I've never done anything for Ford Motor Company, although my client in Detroit has done some work on one of their offices. But the difference, I think, with architecture is the product, so to speak, is not off an assembly line. It's
Right.
a one-off, right? And so you're doing the PR on a project that exists toward the next project, right? So Ford, they're just going to be selling, and they could just sell you that product and be done. We all know how long architecture takes.
Mm-hmm.
And what a good business practice it is to keep that one client even when you're done for repeat work and added services like that. So it really has more of a relationship aspect to it.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, to me, that would be a pretty big difference, right? It's maybe it is more relationship based as a goal than of course, Ford's going to roll out that ridiculous new whatever they're calling that Mustang thing or whatever products they've got, new model that's coming out, but not so much relationship, I guess.
And real difference in budgets.
Well,
Real difference.
that's a really good point.
Right. Yeah. I might, if I did stuff for Ford, I might get a Mustang. I'm not getting a house. It just isn't happening.
That's a good point. You're not getting into those side benefits, right? And, and I think, especially because this audience is presumably mainly small firm architecture firms, although since we have the simulcast that's going out to a number of channels, we may be getting some larger firms in and others as well. But if we focus on the small firms, you and I both know that there are plenty of these firms that probably don't have a dedicated marketing budget, let alone a line item for PR. Is it possible? This question actually came up this morning on Clubhouse. Is it possible for the community or our friends to help us with our PR? Does that make sense? If you're an architect and you've got a project or something you're working on, is it possible for your friends to play a part in that?
Well, I would say your clients can, depending on the type of project. And that is one thing if you're working for a developer or a company, an organization, as opposed to a single family. Often they will be doing some PR. And often, if you assume that they're going to include you, you will be incorrect most of the time. So it's something you do need to be a little proactive on and to coordinate with their people. Likewise, if you're doing a new restaurant will have their PR, a new hotel will have their PR. But again, how many restaurant reviews do you read where they talk about the ambiance like halfway through and, gee, I guess it just happened. They don't mention who actually designed it and made all of those choices. So you do have to be proactive in doing that.
So does that mean that you've got a relationship with your client, and I guess this is, what I'm thinking is sort of the DIY version for the small firm that hasn't hired you or a PR firm to help them. So then, do we need to reach out to the client's communications person or PR person, or is it how do we approach that conversation?
Yeah, just to kind of see what they're doing. I mean, okay. that would be the best way to do that.
One of the things
obviously myriad other things that they can do.
Sure. Yeah. One of the things that we've talked about some this week has been awards. We've touched on photography some, and
I'm number 2.
All right. What's so important about the photography?
Oh gosh. Well, at the end of the day, it's all you have. So I really encourage people to look at it as an investment and not an expense, because it's really all you've got at the end of the day. And it's got to be good. It's got to be professional. And so it is an investment. So maybe not every single project you go to, an A-list photographer. You can, if there's an art school in your area, if there's a photographer, photo students, they need to build their portfolio. It's not going to be necessarily, Tom Bonner, quality, but you can get some good stuff on it. And so you're going to need it for your social media, your proposals, your website, any publication, you are going to need it. Some publications, mostly the shelter magazines, the ones that do single family that are on the newsstand, if you can find a newsstand. Traditionally, they've done their own photography, which you usually don't even get access to after. However, budgets and pages getting fewer, many of them are taking supplied photography.
It's good to know.
You can also partner with your client, with your contractor, lighting designer, landscape, and partner, see who on the team wants in on the photographs. And then the photographers will add a percentage for each user, but it will still be a bit more cost effective if you
that's exactly where I was going with that. So that is a great point. What do we got here, Katharine?
Well, I had Chris's question up there, which we can get back to, but I thought this was relevant to Christian has a question about what about those of us who do not have, they have non-photographable stuff. Like he provides a service to architects, so any kind of PR that he would do isn't going to be photographable.
What's the service?
He does
For instance,
kind of like quality control on people's drawings. So he will look at CDs, for example, and point out places that there's information missing and that sort of thing. So if you were going to get PR, how if you were going to invest in that, what would that look like?
I would say the PR, I wouldn't say that's a media story necessarily, unless you have found something that saved someone millions of dollars kind of thing, but then will that client really want that out there? But that's where your marketing communications come in. And that is really something that there are some things that may happen within your firm that are big for you, like a 20th anniversary. That's great. The media doesn't care. 150, not bad, but it's a huge benchmark for you. And that's where your marketing communications would come in more, where you would do, an e-blast or a newsletter or, going out to your clients. So I think for that type of service, it's more that the kind of marketing communications and honing your message on the services that you do, but always leading with the benefits. What's the result? We had years ago worked with part of the term a value engineering firm, and actually our role was to try to redefine that. We were putting the value into value engineering, and we looked at their website and it just described the project. I said, so what was your solution? That's what anybody wants to know. So what are the results? What are the things that you solve, that problem that you solve for your clients?
Yep. They get that message beat into them. I talk about that a lot. So there you go, everybody. I didn't pay Julie to say that, but talk about the results.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, for any firm, but particularly for the smaller firm, my first point of advice would be do something. And the lowest effort thing you can do is a building sign. I am astounded driving around and seeing so few building signs. Even I've seen it on some of my clients' things. In every meeting, I'm like, where's that sign? I had a client who's doing something right around the corner from me, from where I live. I'm like, I don't see your sign. I don't see your sign. I see the contractor's sign really big. And make it readable. So they finally did it. And it was thin white on black type. I'm like, you might as well just have not done it. Make it big, bold, website, phone number. Easy, easy, easy. But often, for some reason, overlooked.
Yep, makes sense. So this is Chris's question then that was up before.
Yeah, so he wanted to know, is being included in client PR something you should have in your contract?
I believe it's, Well, yes, certainly if you can get it in there. I think AIA contracts have that you are allowed to kind of publish and photograph. I'm sure all of you have a story where your client's gone, no. So that's, it's a hard, I know that it's hard to ask the clients for too many things, which is when we work with our clients, we say, we're going to protect you as much as promote you. So, and it's easier for us as an outside firm to go to your client's marketing people or go to your client because it's one fewer ask that you have to, because you got to ask your client for so many things.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like the idea of trying to get that in the contract. I've never seen it before, but it's a great try. We were talking about Christian and others. John Kenny is another one. I see his comment there about he does Revit coaching and things like that. That's right. That's not so visual. Maybe the same camp as Christians. I also know that there are many in our audience that think they have projects that are not maybe not sexy enough to publish. I don't know. It might be a window replacement or something like that. So if
You mean
that,
that's not sexy enough to publish? What? Window replacements
I
are
mean, maybe
super
for Pella,
exciting.
I don't know.
It all depends on how you've done
Is what's the if that's your, I mean, if that's your bread and butter work, what do you do with it?
Well, I think in publishing, I kind of made a hierarchy list for the small firm because I know a lot of it is what can you do yourself, right? So
Yeah.
like the first was a building sign, get your photography and video together. Video is good. A lot of that's good for your socials and publications. I like to do the video. Then work on your website because that's your front door now, right? So you want to put up work that's photographed well, that looks good. You don't have to put everything you've ever done in your whole life. Just really get the best stuff because no one except maybe, your mom is going to really go through that and want to see everything. So what is your best stuff? And when you do a project, start with the eye candy. If I had a client who did all of the drawings first. I'm like, do you want a non-architect client? Start with the eye candy. So you got to go to your audience there. And then social media. And then publication. So it's a lot of different kind of layers. But yes, some of what's done isn't necessarily press-worthy.
Mm-hmm.
So being a creative person, you want to get in there and go, okay, how else can I do this? Can I do this through social media? Can I show the progress of a project? What goes into a project? Can I take some cool, that's where the photography with your iPhone is, great. And, can I take some cool abstract images of this window corner and post and go, hey, guess, what do you think this is? Engage people in that. So you want to use your creativity, for all of it.
I think that's a really good point. So when you have a client, small firm, large firm, whatever, that I don't know if it's a new project or if it's an ongoing campaign or what it is, but how do you decide? How do you go about deciding, okay, where's this going to go?
Well, first you've got the quality of the project.
Okay.
And knowing the media, that if you're going to go after media, whether it's online or print or podcast or whatever, you've got to know what they do. So that when you approach them, you're approaching them with something that is appropriate to them. So if you have, I don't know, a 40,000 square foot traditional estate, don't go to Dwell. Not going to work, right? So, have it be always appropriate so that you know the media. So you want to know what types of things they do. And then, you know, I'm working on this house that I adore, that I think should be at the top of the top. Haven't quite gotten there yet, but I went for the top one. It would be appropriate in there. Okay, so then they said no. So I went down to the next one that I wanted. So you got to look at your audience. Who are you trying to get to? You know, having a house in record houses is fabulous, and that will serve a purpose. But if it's like the one house that you've had that's, you know, golden, you want to try to get it in front of a more consumer-oriented outlet. And whether that's Dwell or Digest, or, I mean, and these are all difficult to get into. There are fewer places to publish, and the competition is higher and higher and higher. So that you need to know. And that the photography that you get, you know, really study what the magazines are doing and how they're taking their photographs. And it's often different. When I want to shoot for a client, I'm like, okay, take this because this is my cover, and it's got to be vertical. You know, we want huge horizontal to fit our websites and to show everything. But we need to have a kind of layered photography strategy.
So you're really trying to match or mimic, I don't know what the right word is, but you're trying to mimic what that publication does.
Yes,
in
that's
all of
their,
yeah.
Yeah, that's the publication that you want.
Yeah.
And good to have photos with people and without. You know, that's easy enough to do. Like run in there, run out. You know, that's great. If there's a dog, that's always, they love that. Just don't have any publications lying around. You know, because you don't want to go to Dwell and have a big architectural digest on the table.
That gets filed under faux pas, I guess.
And then also for many things, you do. There are two things that happen in the publication industry that I would change tomorrow, but I'm not in control of all that yet. So one is exclusivity. A lot of them want to be the first ones. So you really have to go, okay. I mean, we got a house in the New York Times, and so we can't get it into any other first run, you know, publications or national publications because it was already published. Oh gosh, in the New York Times. Well, that's worth it, you know. So what are the things that are kind of, you know, worth it to you?
We're talking a lot about publications, as in what we would traditionally think of as publications. You know, here we are, of course, in 2021, and a lot has changed in the media landscape, probably in the last 5 months, let alone the last 5 years or 15 years. But are publications, traditional publications, still a big focus, or do we look at other online and so on?
You kind of look at everything. The thing about print, I think, in an older client base, print still matters.
Okay.
If your client base are, you know, tech billionaires, then no, not so much. The great thing about being in print is that you're going to be online. And the print online thing doesn't really make sense because really a finite number of people are seeing the print. I mean, a good number, but still finite, as opposed to infinite and forever that's online.
Yeah.
Some people have a preference one way or the other. Some don't care. And a lot of publications will go, we don't have room for this in print. We'll do a story online. Great. You know, it's more shareable. A lot more people will see it. It'll be, you know, it'll be living up there forever. and you still have the imprimatur of that publication. So,
is there some sort of stigma still attached? Oh, well, you didn't make it in the print version, but no, that's gone.
No, I don't think so. So many, people just live online now, and there are a lot of just online only places that, like a Dezeen or Design Boom. We consider those primary sources, just as we would, Dwell or whatever. We do try to exhaust as much in print. Can we get this in print before spreading it all around online? Because the print people think then everybody has seen it. So it's kind of finessing it.
Yeah, gets back to the exclusivity piece of it.
Yeah.
So you said you don't control that yet. Are you going to control that in the future?
We shall see.
I don't know. If you're listening to the podcast version of this, I actually see the wheels turning right now. So,
well, I used to be in publication. I used to be an editor. So, so I went to the other side.
I've got a feeling Julie's got an announcement coming at some point. Yeah. So, are most of your clients focused on attracting and finding clients, or do they have other goals?
Clients primarily, but definitely, the other goal of being out there, because we're such a media saturated world now, you're conspicuous by your absence. We have our largest client. They do, primarily institutional work. They don't expect to have someone pick up the phone necessarily, but it keeps them out there. They're out there, they're in the running, they're in the mix, so that they are part of, lists of top healthcare architects, top whatever. So they're always out there.
Yeah.
And that's,
so they're positioning themselves.
So it's a cumulative process. There have been wonderful kind of kismet, where you were talking about magic earlier, where a project will get shown somewhere, someone who absolutely loves it and has a need for it at that moment will contact that person. I love that. That's great. Someone might bookmark it and call a few years later when they have their funding. So it is a kind of, there's definitely a cumulative kind of process too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. It reminds me, we were talking when we were talking about publication or getting published the other day. One question was, does being on someone's podcast count as being published anymore? Right? It's an interview that it's different.
It's broadcast.
Broadcast.
It's broadcast just like. It's radio, it's TV. Right now, sound and picture are coming out of a screen type object. That's exactly how I would, describe television.
Right. Well, my kids watch TV this way.
Podcast is voice coming out of some electronic box.
Yeah. Sounds
like a radio. So yeah, we consider that broadcast.
And for those of you that aren't familiar with what a radio is,
I'm showing it, man. I'm showing it.
We're all in the same camp here.
Transistor.
Yep. AM, FM, 9 volt. Google it. One question that came up this morning when we were having our coffee talk on Clubhouse that I love the way it was phrased was, how do we attract, let's see, I've got to remember, how do we attract clients rather than fans? I thought that's interesting.
Yeah. They've got to be fans first.
Okay.
And you don't know at that moment whether they will convert into that. And that's where your marketing, personality, talent, all of that, comes in. I mean, we say we can get people who don't know you to know who you are. You need to close that sale, right? Basically. So they've got to start off as fans. And like I said, you just don't know. Many years ago, I started my PR career at Pacific Design Center. So, showrooms of very expensive furnishings. And sometimes we would see someone come in dressed down in jeans, the sweatshirt, go into a showroom, and the showroom people just like not paying them attention. If you look a little closer, that's Cher, okay? So, you don't know who's going to transfer, into someone. But you make those relationships, and you see, and that has to do with putting yourself out there in the appropriate places. I've heard on some a particular website where a lot of people are listed, kind of how with houses that they get a lot of calls for kitchen renos, and oh, where did you get that sofa in that picture? So that's a pain. So you want to look to where your real audience is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You talked about the cumulative, which I guess speaks to consistency as well. I mean,
Yes.
I don't think you're going to be accumulating anything if you're not consistently putting yourself out there, if that's the right way to say it. If you're a sole proprietor, you're one person in your firm, you're wearing 17 hats, which is a lot of this audience. What can they be doing day by day or week by week to build some consistency?
The one that don't try to do too much. Okay. So I would say don't have launch 8,000 social media channels and I'm going to do a monthly, hi, I'm doing a monthly newsletter, and then only do one. That's the worst. So figure out what is really in your capability, time and effort wise. And I think for us, I think social media in this way is your best bet. And again, if you're just starting, take a look at one platform. And if you're only going to do one, do Instagram. It's visual, a lot of visual and a little text. Facebook would be the next, and LinkedIn. And you want to, again, figure out, okay, how much can I do? You set up your profile, posting twice a week is, to start is really good. You want to post images. You could do an image gallery of a few images, single post, videos, the Instagram stories, and have it be a mix of, your projects, renderings, projects in process, construction, announcement of an award. If you go to an event, if we ever have events again, pictures with people. So that there's a lot of content there to put up there. And then you need to build, obviously, your following. So, which means you need to follow people. So you want to follow the organizations that are meaningful to you and to your client, the people within those organizations, your clients, your your affiliates, the landscape architects, the lighting designers, the engineers, and your colleagues, your competition. You want to see what they're doing. Your alma mater, your professors, magazines, websites, writers that you like. Just really far and wide, because the more people you follow, then they start looking at you and following. If you're doing design awards, because I know you mentioned that, and they list the judges, the jury, go follow those people on that jury. They follow you back, they may see your work. I've run a lot of design award programs, and I will say, if projects have been published, if they've been out there in some way, there's a familiarity. Even if it's a blind judging, people like what is familiar to them, and it works on a kind of subliminal level. Just get it, just saying, just kind of get it out there. You want to be social. Our social media director at the firm is like, it's called social for something. Be social. Like other people's posts. Comment on them. If you get comments, thank people. Just comment back in a simple, thanks is enough. So that way you're being social. So it's definitely something that is doable if you make it doable. You can always build, but you don't want to build an expectation and then go down. I have the same kind of advice on your website. People go, let's do a blog. We got to do a blog. And I go, okay. You can do that, but I would not ever call it blog, because that sets up an expectation that is going to be very regularly updated with new information. So the worst is when I click on a blog, and it's from 4 years ago. So come up with some other name, inspirations, things we like, something else that doesn't set up an expectation. That's just going to end up falling short.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. It makes a lot of sense. You mentioned awards, and we did talk about that. That was our topic yesterday, I think. We talked about the value of awards, and of course, there's a huge mixture of opinions about that.
Yes.
That span the whole spectrum. Do you see from the PR professional point of view, and I'm assuming that you're probably helping some of your clients submit for these things.
Yeah.
From that point of view, and then we can come back around as an awards director, I guess. But do you see value for your clients in winning awards?
Yes, and particularly if they do. I have some clients who it's very valuable, for them. They enter a lot of awards programs. I think for the smaller firm, get your budget, because they can get costly. The ones that I prefer are ones that are put out by a reputable organization and publications. So those you've got your AIA, you've got a lot of your depending on your typology area. There's, specific healthcare awards, specific restaurant awards, specific hotel awards. Those are the ones that are going to get you more in front of potential clients. Some of the more valuable publications and websites are not the ones that are ever at the newsstand. They're these smaller but more concentrated circulation, really not necessarily sexy publications, such as Healthcare Design Magazine or, RD&D, Restaurant Design and Development. So those are the verticals that are going more to decision makers. So it's like a secret underbelly of trade publications, but I'm sure a lot of you do get them and get their newsletters and like that. So awards, it also depends on who is seeing them. There's the Industrial Designer Society of America, IDSA, has an awards program. Most of it is their kind of product. But there's an environments category. And that's one that I really recommend because it's a different kind of audience that's going to see it. It's industrial designers, it's manufacturers, it's, all these people need space. So looking at something that's maybe a little off, but do beware because there are some prizes and stuff that are, sometimes they'll go, oh, you won a something that you never even knew or thought that you applied for, but you've got to pay to get the certificates, all that's bogus stuff. And to me, an organization that only does the awards, I don't know, it can be a little suspect. So be judicious.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good point. You came all the way back to the strategy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Who are we getting this in front of?
The thing that you want to do is leverage that award once you win it. Once you win and the plaque's on the wall, it doesn't end there. You post it on your socials. You put it on your news, on your website. You do an e-blast to your clients. We do news releases when the projects go out. And guess what? Those get picked up. And even though the awarding body might also do a release, they're going to send it out with the 5 to 12 to 25, 50 other winners. You do something your own, when it gets published, it sounds like you're the only one who ever won that project, won a project award ever in the world. So it's, behooves you to get out there and be a little bit more proactive, in the channels that you can.
When you're sending out the press releases, I remember when we faxed those things.
Folding. You used to have a folding machine.
There you go. Again, just Google it. When you're sending those out now, are you using one of the services where you post it, or are you sending those out to individual journalists, or how are you doing that?
There's all, just like you've got all your architecture tools, we have all of our PR tools where we've got a huge database and a system through which they get emailed. Some people will just click architecture and send to everything that's in there. We don't do that. We handpick every single journalist that it goes to, because I used to be one. And I know the stuff that comes out, and I still have press credentials, and I will still get things under that have nothing to do with anything I have ever done. And guess what? I'm not going to see what that person sends me the next time, because they don't know who I am, they don't know what I do, they don't know the publication, and they don't have a problem wasting my time. That's not going to be a friend. Right? So we're
like half the LinkedIn in-mails I get.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're judicious again in that way. Yeah. And it takes research. It takes, who's the byline, who's on that, who are those editors?
I think that's an important point too. For all of us that are, we're in the DIY mode. We talked about this the other day. You could be focusing on your local neighborhood newspaper or something like that, but we have to know who covers what and how it makes their life easy, how their job easier. And
absolutely. Yeah. And the local press, I would not poo-poo any of that. And local and regional publications are great, particularly on a smaller firm. And for single family, all that stuff's good.
I came up with this theory the other day. It's just, maybe out of left field, but an Instagram post So you've got you've got your image or your video, whatever it is. You've got your caption that's telling the story. You've got some hashtags. You can tag people in the post. Is that a modern version of a press release?
Sure. A press release is taking some information and getting it out to other people who don't know you. Same thing. Same thing. And we were talking earlier about, well, all the media's changed, right? And so has PR in itself intrinsically changed? And I'm going to say no, because the impulse and the research is the same. The medium has changed.
The tools are different.
The medium has changed. The PR tools, you still need to know who's writing, know the outlet, be appropriate. So all of that is the same. None of that has changed. But the end result, the final medium into which the message will go, has changed. It's changed its format, and it has changed how, online is different, and we know that it's kind of still the Wild West out there. And there's a lot of user-generated material. That's what your website is. You generated that. That's what social media is. You are generating that. The thing about earned media, which is what we call, being on a third party, is that a third party respected by a certain audience has deemed your work worthy. So it's an added layer of acceptance and reference.
So you're getting into the idea of influence, right? Is this, if it's curbed or whatever, the first one that came to my mind does that influence your whoever it is you're trying to reach, I guess? If you're when you're trying to when you're getting something out there, maybe you're trying to get published, reputable, not reputable, is somebody like, just as an example, if we get it to curbed, they're online only, right?
Yeah.
If we get them to curbed, are they influencing the people that we're trying to reach? Is that being consumed, I guess, by the people we're trying to reach? That's
Absolutely.
the big question.
That's always the question. Yeah. You have to go, okay, it's real estate. It's unfortunately Curbed has really, since they were bought by the parent company, New York Magazine, and it's now been subsumed into New York Magazine, and I think part of it goes behind a paywall now, and it's so New York centric. They do have some kind of guest articles in other places, but they have closed down all of those local offices, which was really a shame. A site called Urbanize, which was only LA, very smart, has taken up the mantle and has opened up now in many cities. So that's definitely a place to check.
Good to know. That's good to know. So it seems like, even like you said, the medium has changed, the end has changed, but it seems like even the strategy is very similar. The goals are very similar.
Yeah. Yes. And one of the differences with social media is you are kind of going in a lot of ways directly to, it's user generated, hitting your end user, right? Going to your clients more directly.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also really good for other media, because media professionals are looking at, well, what is trending? What are people liking? What are the things that are out there? Which is why I recommend following those writers and reporters who cover what it is that you do.
When we're talking about getting in front of potential clients, I guess, I think there's this strange little vortex, right? Where I'm sure there are some in our audience today that are thinking, especially back when we were talking about what's in the AIA contract, photography, right to photograph, et cetera, in the AIA contract. What happens? And I know that there are clients that want to be published. Hey, I want a X project, whatever it is. I want something that's going to win an award. Maybe I want something that'll get published. But you've also got plenty of clients that don't want to have their house shown or whatever the case is. What do you do about situations like that? Is it just a negotiation, or is there anything that you?
It's a lot of negotiation with the client. When someone comes to me with a single family, there are so many, depending on what the owners will do and will allow, depends on where it can go. Will they allow it to be rephotographed? Will they be named? Will they be interviewed but not named? Will they be photographed, interviewed, and named? What about the budget? Will they say what the budget is? So all those different things depend on where it could be published. But the least that you want is to get images for your portfolio and request that you can put them on your website and social media. Now they may go, okay, website's okay, social's not okay. I mean, it's your client, it's their house, right? So you have to, if you want to maintain that relationship, you do have to abide by that. Anything more than that is for when you do a show with an attorney. That's out of mind. But I do know that there are certain things that you do need to request. There are some publications that will not publish a project unless they have a sign-off directly from the owners, whether the owners are interviewed or named or not, because that covers their liability.
That doesn't surprise me. Makes sense, actually. Yeah. So when we're approaching that, I know we're getting into contract negotiation and things like that. Is it best to have that conversation at the beginning of the project?
Oh, I believe so. I absolutely believe so. Because unfortunately, we know that some projects don't end on the happiest note all the time. And the client can still go, oh yeah, I said that before, now I'm saying no, because it's their house. They can change the locks. Hopefully make it look like you wanted it to look like. So yeah, the more upfront, the better. And you will have some clients who I want this in Arc Digest. It may or may not be an Arc Digest house, but we've had it, particularly with Hollywood clients, where it was so frustrating because we could have gotten this house up and down. So many people wanted it, and they kept dinging. They kept going, no, we don't want it there. We want it here. And it's like, this is so much better. And then dragging their feet, and then we just, and they wouldn't say a budget, even make one up. And it was, not that they made the kind of movies I liked anyway, but I will never go to any other movies anymore.
The residual effect.
So frustrating.
Oh, that's great. Well, I know we're at the top of the hour here already, amazingly. So why don't we just wrap it up with this? I mean, we've covered a lot of ground and a lot of great advice here. With our small firm architect audience, what's the one thing that they need to do before the end of the day today in terms of promoting their firm?
Get your signs printed.
That's good advice.
And look and see if you can do, a couple hours a week timed in your calendar to look at social media and see what you can do with it. Put it in your calendar. My coach says if it's not in your calendar, it's not in existence.
Yeah. I think I gave that exact advice earlier today. I think that's really good advice.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. And, get educated. Like I wanted to say at the beginning is bravo to all of you taking the time to work with Jeff and Katharine, taking the time to put attention to this in just to begin with, and recognizing that you are in a business. My father always said to me, if you want to be in the business, be in the business. This is an AIA. The mirror thing. This is an AIA pin. A couple of years ago, I had just the biggest honor of my life in getting an honorary AIA from the national organization. So it's something I'm very, very proud of, and staying on brand, and that's a big thing. Stay on brand. Purple is my firm's branded color, so I'm going to be wearing a little dash of purple here. I'm on the side of the architect. I'm going to wear my AIA pin. So
that's very good. Congratulations on that, by the way. Yeah, and I'm going to second that. And everybody hears me say this every day, but these, whether it's the daily show that we have inside the Entree Architect Community Facebook group, or it's the live, we call this the live simulcast that goes out everywhere, plus the podcast version of it. These really are, and everybody that participates in these in the audience, they really make these conversations into great resources that continue to live on. And so if you're out there, if you've been in this audience today and you know somebody that needs this, or if you have a colleague, an architect across town or across the country, classmate, whatever, that needs to hear a conversation about PR for small firm architects, have them come to the Entree Architect Community Facebook group and watch this video and read the comments, or go to the Entree Architect YouTube channel and find the video of this. Or Monday, it'll be out at noon Monday. Listen to the podcast version of this conversation. These are resources our number one goal is to help architects build better businesses. And Julie, I really appreciate you being here and helping us with the PR aspect of the business.
My absolute pleasure. Another low effort thing. I know that your school, wherever you studied, is always asking you for money, but the Alumni Society is pretty much always asking you what's going on with you. Class notes. Easy, easy, easy.
It's good advice. Yep. I've just got my last magazine and flipped through. That's all I look at is the class notes.
Yeah. Who did what? Who's doing what?
Yep.
And that goes for high school too. I mean, my high school has a thing in my college also, and then I never read my graduate school. I don't know if I even have a graduate school magazine,
but I would say, because your department, I'm sure, has something, but if you were from a university, major university, that's all those other people. But I always say, you don't know that guy at the end of the cafeteria table who would eat a tea bag on a bet is actually doing that. So.
If that's the worst he did, that's not so bad.
I think I know that guy. I think he was my roommate.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a good one. Well, Julie, thank you again for joining us today. It's been great. Lots of great information. Katharine, thank you for keeping the wheels on the bus again. And for all of you out there, appreciate all of you. Thank you for all of your comments and all of your questions. Thank you for making context and clarity a thing. I say that a lot because if it weren't for you making context and clarity and sticking with context and clarity since April 9th of 2020, we wouldn't be talking to Julie today. So appreciate all of you for that. For a little heads up, tomorrow we have a very special, another live context and clarity from Jay Peak, Vermont, as we're kicking off a weekend of context and clarity in person for those of us that can make it almost to Canada. And we're going to be live tomorrow, and a super live, I think is what we're calling it, on Saturday.
Yep. I think it's called Super Live Special Edition because we don't usually meet on Saturdays. So
True. I just can't remember that many words. Yeah. Okay. Super live special edition.
Yeah. And it's a good thing we're going all the way to Canada because it's not going to be hot up there. So that's the good news.
I appreciate that.
I do too.
Yeah. If I'm going to leave my white box, I need to go into somewhere cooler.
Yep.
All right, everybody. We appreciate you. And thanks also to those listening on the podcast version. Thank you for listening in. We will be back for Context and Clarity Live next Thursday. And our special guest next Thursday will be Eric Reinhold of 30 by 40 Design Workshop. He and his childhood friend Jason have a new podcast called Two Sides of Fi. They're very into this idea of FIRE, and that's an acronym, not like flames, but FIRE is financially independent, retire early. So all week next week, we will talk about money mindsets and your relationship with money and finances. So it's going to be an interesting week. Yeah, FIRE. We're not going to burn down the house. We're going to figure out.
I might sit in. I like that very much.
What if you're already too old to be retiring early? I mean, what if? Is it a thing for everybody?
I think it's a thing for everybody.
When's early? I'll have to ask them next week.
You know what? That is actually the number one question in my mind is what is early? So, all right, we can ask them that.
Yep.
All right. With that, everybody, again, thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all of your questions and comments. Please take care of yourself today, tonight, this evening. Be well, be safe. Encourage those around you, please, to take care of themselves and find a little bit of time to breathe a little bit and rejuvenate overnight, because we're going to do this again tomorrow in a very special way. So we'll see you then. Thanks, everybody.
Great. Thanks, everyone.